The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, echoing like a gunshot through the silent ballroom. 300 guests froze their eyes locked on Marcus, whose face was twisted in a sneer as he pointed a shaking finger at his pregnant wife, Chloe. "Look at you," he shouted, his voice dripping with venom. "You're pathetic. You're nothing but a burden, dragging me down." He thought he was untouchable. He thought she was just a poor girl he had saved. But Marcus was blissfully unaware that the silver limousine pulling up to the driveway didn't belong to a guest. It belonged to the one man who could dissolve Marcus's entire existence with a single phone call. What happens when a cruel husband pushes his wife too far, unaware of who her father really is? You won't believe the instant karma that was about to hit him. The rain battered against the tinted windows of the Mercedes S-Class, blurring the lights of downtown Seattle into streaks of grey and gold. Inside the car, the silence was heavier than the storm outside. Chloe shifted uncomfortably in the leather passenger seat. At 7 months pregnant, finding a comfortable position was a distant memory. Her lower back throbbed with a dull, persistent ache, and her ankles felt swollen against the straps of her heels. She instinctively placed a hand on her stomach, a protective gesture that had become second nature over the last few months. "Stop fidgeting." Marcus snapped, his eyes fixed on the road, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. "You're wrinkling the dress. Do you have any idea how much that silk cost?" "It's a Vera Wang custom, Chloe. Try to act like you deserve to wear it." Chloe bit her lip, tasting the metallic tang of blood. "I'm sorry, Marcus. My back is just... It's really hurting tonight. The baby is kicking hard." The baby. It's always about the baby," Marcus muttered, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror. He adjusted his silk tie, a deep crimson, that matched the handkerchief in his pocket. "Tonight isn't about you, Chloe. It's my mother's 60th birthday. It's the social event of the season. The board of directors from Vanguard Holdings will be there. I am this close to the VP position, and I need you to look the part of the successful executive's wife. Not a tired, complaining mess." Chloe looked out the window to hide the tears welling in her eyes. 2 years ago, Marcus hadn't been like this. When they met at that small coffee shop on 4th Avenue, where she worked as a barista, he had been charming, attentive, and seemingly humble. He had swept her off her feet, ignoring the fact that she lived in a small, run-down apartment in the cheaper side of Tacoma, and drove a beat-up Honda. But as soon as the ring was on her finger, and she moved into his sterile, modern penthouse, the mask slipped. And when she got pregnant, the mask shattered completely. "I'll do my best," she whispered. "Your best better be good enough," Marcus warned, as he turned the car onto the winding private road leading to the Sterling estate. "Mother is already in a mood. She thinks the flower arrangements are too pedestrian. Don't give her another reason to be upset." The Sterling estate was less of a home and more of a fortress of wealth. Massive iron gates swung open, revealing a sprawling driveway lined with luxury cars, Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, and Ferraris. The house itself was a monstrosity of stone and glass glowing with golden light. A valet opened Chloe's door. She struggled for a moment to hoist her weight up, hoping Marcus would offer a hand. He didn't. He was already out buttoning his suit jacket and smoothing his hair, striding toward the massive oak doors without looking back. Chloe took a deep breath, plastered a fake smile on her face, and waddled after him. The ballroom was suffocating. The air smelled of expensive perfume, lilies, and old money. A live string quartet played softly in the corner, drowned out by the murmur of hundreds of conversations. Marcus darling. Beatrice Sterling descended the grand staircase like a queen addressing her subjects. She was draped in diamonds that probably cost more than the entire neighborhood Chloe grew up in. Her silver gown was tight, showcasing a figure she maintained with terrifying discipline. Marcus bowed his head slightly. "Happy birthday, Mother. You look stunning." Beatrice kissed Marcus on both cheeks, beaming with pride, before her icy blue eyes slid over to Chloe. The smile vanished instantly. "Chloe," Beatrice said, her tone flat. She looked Chloe up and down, her gaze lingering disapprovingly on the baby bump. "I see you haven't managed to lose that water weight in your face yet. And that dress, I specifically suggested the navy blue. This champagne color makes you look washed out, like a ghost." "Hello, Beatrice," Chloe said, keeping her voice steady. "Happy birthday. The navy dress didn't fit around the baby is growing fast." Beatrice let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Yes, we are all painfully aware of the condition you're in. Just try not to knock over any waiters, dear. It would be terribly embarrassing for Marcus." Beatrice turned her back on Chloe, immediately linking arms with her son. "Come, Marcus. Mr. Henderson from the acquisition team is dying to meet you. He's by the bar." "Stay here," Marcus hissed at Chloe over his shoulder. "Don't wander off. And for God's sake, don't eat the hors d'oeuvres. You've had enough." Chloe stood alone in the middle of the crowded room, feeling small despite her size. She watched her husband and mother-in-law disappear into the crowd, laughing as if they didn't have a care in the world. She felt a sharp kick in her ribs. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, rubbing her belly. "We just have to get through 3 hours, then we can go home." But Chloe had no idea that in less than an hour, this party would turn into a battlefield. 40 minutes passed. Chloe's legs were screaming in protest. She had tried to find a chair, but every seat seemed to be occupied or reserved with a meticulously placed Gucci clutch. She leaned against a marble pillar near the catering entrance, trying to stay out of the way. She was thirsty, desperately thirsty. She caught the eye of a passing waiter. "Excuse me, could I just have a glass of water? No ice?" The waiter, a young man who looked terrified of the guests, nodded quickly. "Of course, ma'am. Right away." As she waited, she scanned the room for Marcus. She spotted him near the patio doors. He wasn't with Mr. Henderson. He was standing intimately close to a woman Chloe recognized, Jessica Thorne. Jessica was the daughter of a real estate tycoon, tall, blonde, and dangerously beautiful. She was everything Beatrice wanted for a daughter-in-law. Chloe watched as Jessica laughed, placing a hand on Marcus's chest. Marcus didn't pull away. In fact, he leaned in, whispering something into Jessica's ear that made her giggle and bite her lip. A cold knot formed in Chloe's stomach, colder than the air conditioning. It wasn't the first time she had seen them together. Late-night texts, business meetings that ran until 2:00 a.m. The smell of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. Chloe wasn't stupid. She was just trapped. She had no money of her own, no family nearby, and a baby on the way. The waiter returned with her water. "Here you are, ma'am." "Thank you," she said, reaching for the glass. But before her fingers could close around the stem, a heavy hand slammed into her shoulder. Startled, Chloe flinched. Her hand struck the tray, and the glass of water tipped over, splashing icy liquid down the front of her expensive silk dress and onto the polished floor. "Clumsy cow," Chloe gasped, looking up to see Beatrice standing there, her face contorted with rage. A tiny drop of water had landed on the hem of Beatrice's gown. I'm so sorry, Beatrice, I didn't see you, Chloe stammered, grabbing a napkin from the tray to dab at the water. Don't touch me, Beatrice shrieked, slapping Chloe's hand away. The sound of the slap was sharp enough to cut through the chatter nearby. Heads began to turn. You ruin everything. Don't you first. You ruin my son's potential by trapping him with this pregnancy, and now you're ruining my party. Marcus appeared instantly, storming over from Jessica's side. What is going on here? Your wife, Beatrice hissed, pointing at the small puddle on the floor. Just threw water on me. She's drunk, Marcus. Look at her. She can't even stand up straight. I'm not drunk, Chloe cried, her face burning with humiliation as the circle of onlookers grew. I asked for water. I'm tired, Marcus. I just wanted a drink. Marcus looked at the wet stain on Chloe's dress, then at his mother's furious face. He didn't ask if Chloe was okay. He didn't care that she was shaking. He saw the eyes of the city's elite on him, judging him for the scene his low-class wife was causing. You are embarrassing me, Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. Marcus, please, Chloe pleaded, reaching for his arm. I don't feel well. I think I'm having contractions. Please just take me home. Marcus recoiled from her touch as if she were contagious. He looked around the room, seeing the opportunity to salvage his reputation with his mother and the guests by asserting dominance. He decided to play the victim. Home. Marcus laughed loudly, a cruel theatrical sound meant for the audience. You want to go home to the penthouse I pay for, to eat the food I buy. You contribute nothing, Chloe. Absolutely nothing. The room went deathly silent. The string quartet stopped playing. Marcus, stop! Chloe whispered, tears spilling over. Why should I stop? Marcus shouted, stepping closer, looming over her. Everyone here knows the truth. You were a broke barista looking for a meal ticket. You trapped me with this baby just to secure a lifestyle you don't deserve. Look at you. You're fat, you're lazy, and quite frankly, I doubt that child is even mine. The gasps from the crowd were audible. Chloe felt the blood drain from her face. How can you say that? I say it because it's true, Marcus roared. I'm done, Chloe. I am done pretending. As of tonight, we are finished. You can take your things and get out. Go back to whatever trailer park you crawled out of. Beatrice stood beside him, arms crossed, a smug smile of victory on her lips. Finally, she said loud enough for the front row to hear. Taking out the trash. Chloe stood there, trembling, water and tears staining her dress. She felt a sharp, agonizing pain in her abdomen, but the emotional pain was far worse. She looked around the room, pleading with her eyes for someone, anyone to help her. But the wealthy elite just stared, sipping their champagne, treating her heartbreak as evening entertainment. She turned to leave her dignity in tatters, realizing she had no way home. Marcus had the keys. She didn't even have her phone. It was in Marcus's jacket pocket because he didn't like her carrying a purse at formal events. Get out! Marcus yelled one last time, pointing toward the grand doors. Chloe took a shaky step, then another. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the ballroom swung open with a resounding boom that shook the floorboards. A gust of wind and rain swept into the hall, followed by 4 men in dark suits. They were large, imposing, and wore earpieces. They didn't look like guests. They looked like security. But not event security. Private military security. They stepped aside, forming a corridor. Through the doors walked a man in his late 60s. He wore a charcoal grey suit that was tailored to perfection, simpler than the flashy tuxedos in the room, but radiating a kind of power that money alone couldn't buy. He had silver hair, piercing grey eyes, and a scar running along his jawline. He held a black cane with a silver wolf's head handle, though he walked with a stride that suggested he didn't need it. The room murmured. "Who is that?" "Is that?" Marcus frowned, annoyed at the interruption. "Who the hell are you?" he shouted across the room. "This is a private event. Security, get this old man out of here." The man ignored Marcus completely. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on the trembling figure of Chloe. The hard lines of his face softened instantly. He walked past the stunned guests, the sound of his cane tapping against the floor. Click, click, click. He stopped right in front of Chloe. He looked at her tear-stained face, the water on her dress, and the way she was clutching her stomach. "Chloe," the man said, his voice deep and gravelly, shaking with suppressed emotion. Chloe looked up, her vision blurry. She blinked, and a gasp escaped her lips. "Dad!" The silence in the room was shattered. Marcus's jaw dropped. Beatrice looked confused. "Dad?" Marcus scoffed, stepping forward. "Chloe's father is a deadbeat mechanic who died 10 years ago. Nice try, old man. Who are you really?" The man slowly turned his head to look at Marcus. The look in his eyes was terrifying, cold, calculating, and utterly ruthless. "I," the man said, his voice projecting to every corner of the silent ballroom, "am Julian Thorne. But you might know me better as the owner of the bank that holds the mortgage on this house, the majority shareholder of Vanguard Holdings, and the man who is about to ruin your miserable little life." The silence that followed Julian Thorne's declaration was heavy, thick enough to choke on. For a solid 10 seconds, the only sound in the massive ballroom was the drumming of rain against the tall windows and the soft, ragged breathing of Chloe. Marcus was the first to break the paralysis. He let out a nervous, incredulous chuckle. This is a joke, right?" He looked around at the guests, seeking validation. "Who hired this actor? Is this some sort of entertainment for the party?" "Mother." Beatrice, however, wasn't laughing. Her face had drained of all color. She was staring at Julian with a look of dawning, horrified recognition. She had seen his face in Forbes, in the Wall Street Journal, on the news. Julian Thorne wasn't a myth. He was a titan of industry, known for hostile takeovers and ruthlessness that made the Sterling family look like children playing with Monopoly money. "Julian Thorne," Beatrice whispered, her hand trembling as she clutched her pearl necklace. Julian ignored them. He stepped closer to Chloe, his eyes scanning her face as if memorizing every detail. He gently lifted his hand, hovering it near her cheek, but afraid to touch her, as if she were made of fragile glass. "I have looked for you for 20 years, Julian said, softly, his voice cracking. "Your mother. She changed your names. She hid you well. She thought my world was too dangerous for you. Maybe she was right." He looked at the tears streaming down Chloe's face. "But I never stopped looking. Not for a single day." Chloe felt a wave of dizziness. The adrenaline of the confrontation was fading, replaced by shock. "Mum always said my father was a mechanic, that he died in a car crash." "A lie to protect you," Julian said bitterly. "A lie that left you vulnerable to vultures like him." He gestured toward Marcus without looking at him. Marcus, sensing the shift in the room's energy, tried to regain control. He stepped between Julian and Chloe, puffing out his chest. "Okay, listen here, old man. I don't care who you think you are. Chloe is my wife, and she is leaving. Now." He reached out to grab Chloe's arm, his grip rough. Thwack! The sound was sharp and sickening. Julian's cane moved with a speed that belied his age, striking Marcus's wrist with calculated precision. Marcus howled in pain, recoiling and clutching his hand. Touch her again, Julian said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register, and you will lose that hand. The 4 security guards in the doorway stepped forward in unison, their hands resting on their holsters. The message was clear. Try us. Marcus cradled his wrist, his face red with humiliation and pain. You assaulted me. Did everyone see that I'll sue you? I'll take everything you have. Julian slowly turned to face Marcus. He adjusted his cufflinks, completely unbothered. Sue me? Julian let out a dry, dark laugh. With what money, Marcus? The money you think you have, or the money you've been embezzling from the company, accounts for the last 6 months. The room gasped. A murmur rippled through the crowd of board members and investors. Marcus froze. I don't know what you're talking about. I do, Julian said calmly. I know about the offshore account in the Caymans. I know about the consulting fees paid to shell companies registered in your name. I know everything, Marcus, because for the last 3 months, while you were busy buying suits and mistreating my daughter, our auditors have been tearing your life apart from the inside out. Beatrice stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation with her trademark manipulation. She forced a trembling smile. Mr. Thorne, surely there has been a misunderstanding. Marcus is a rising star at Vanguard. We are a respectable family. If Chloe really is your daughter, which is a delightful surprise, truly, then we are family. We should be celebrating this union, not fighting. She reached out to touch Julian's arm, attempting to charm him. Julian looked at her hand on his sleeve as if it were a cockroach. Remove your hand, he commanded. Beatrice snatched her hand back as if burned. Family. Julian repeated, his voice dripping with disdain. I stood outside those doors for 10 minutes before I entered. I heard what you called her. Trash. A burden. You watched your son humiliate a pregnant woman, my daughter, carrying your grandchild, and you laughed. You called it taking out the trash. He stepped closer to Beatrice, towering over her. You are not family. You are parasites, and I am the exterminator. You can't talk to us like that in our own house, Beatrice shrieked, her facade crumbling into hysteria. Security, remove him. Your house. Julian raised an eyebrow. He reached into his inside jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. He tossed it onto a nearby table. I suggest you read the foreclosure notice on the bank loan you defaulted on 3 months ago. You've been living on credit and borrowed time. Beatrice, the bank sold the debt yesterday. To me. The guests began to whisper frantically. The Sterling family was broke. The house wasn't theirs. Get out of my house, Julian said calmly. But not you. Chloe, you stay. This is your house now if you want it. Or we can burn it to the ground. It's up to you. The revelation that the Sterling family was financially ruined sent shockwaves through the party. Guests began to awkwardly shuffle away, checking their phones, signaling their valets. No one wanted to be associated with a sinking ship. Marcus, however, was in deep denial. He was a narcissist, and narcissists do not accept defeat easily. He looked around wildly, his eyes landing on Jessica Thorne, the blonde heiress he had been flirting with earlier. Jessica was standing near the buffet, sipping champagne, watching the scene with an unreadable expression. Marcus saw a lifeline. Jessica, Marcus called out, stumbling toward her. Jessica, tell him. Tell your father, well, tell Mr. Thorne who I am. We have a connection, right? We're going to be partners. Marcus turned to Julian, a smug grin returning to his face. You think you've won, I have backups. I have connections. Jessica Thorne and we're close. Her father is a real estate mogul in New York. If you fire me, I'll just go to work for them. In fact, Marcus lowered his voice, trying to sound conspiratorial, though the whole room could hear him. Jessica and I are more than just friends, aren't we, Jess? Chloe is the past. Jessica is the future. He reached for Jessica's hand. Jessica Thorne stepped back smoothly, avoiding his touch. She set her champagne glass down on a passing tray. She looked at Marcus, then she looked at Julian, and then she smiled. But it wasn't the flirtatious smile she had given Marcus earlier. It was a cold, predatory smile. "Hi, Uncle Julian," Jessica said cheerfully. Marcus stopped dead. He looked from Jessica to Julian and back again. "Uncle," Julian nodded at Jessica. "Good work, Jessica. Did you get everything?" "Everything," Jessica replied, reaching into her clutch and pulling out a small digital voice recorder. Every conversation. Every promise he made to leave Chloe once the baby was born. Every admission of insider trading he bragged about after his third scotch. It's all here. She walked over to Chloe, her expression softening into genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry I had to play the part, Chloe. Uncle Julian needed concrete proof of his infidelity and his illegal dealings to ensure he didn't get a single cent in the divorce. I had to let him think I was interested." Chloe stared at the beautiful woman, her mind reeling. You were spying on him." "I was vetting him," Jessica said. "When Uncle Julian found you 6 months ago, he wanted to rush in. But we needed to know if Marcus was just a bad husband or a criminal. Turns out he's both." Marcus looked like he was going to vomit. The color had drained from his face so completely, he looked like a corpse. The woman he thought was his mistress was actually a plant. The woman he thought was his ticket to a better life was the one handing the nails for his coffin to her uncle. "You played me," Marcus whispered. You witch." "I mirrored you, Marcus," Jessica replied sharply. "I showed you what you wanted to see. A shallow, wealthy woman who didn't care about morals. You fell for it because that's exactly who you are." Julian tapped his cane on the floor, drawing attention back to him. "The Vanguard board is meeting an emergency session right now via video conference. I initiated it 10 minutes ago. Based on the evidence Jessica just uploaded to their secure server regarding your embezzlement and corporate espionage, you are effectively terminated for cause." Julian checked his watch. "Actually, knowing how fast the legal department works, you were terminated 2 minutes ago. You lose your stock options. You lose your severance. You lose the company car." "My car," Marcus stammered. "But my keys are in my pocket." "The company leases that car," Julian explained patiently, as if talking to a slow child. "I had the leasing agency remotely disable the ignition. It's a brick in the driveway now. You'll have to walk down the hill." Beatrice let out a wail of despair. "Marcus, do something. He can't do this." "He just did," Marcus screamed at his mother, finally losing his composure completely. "He owns everything, Mother. We're ruined." Suddenly a groan of pain cut through the shouting match. Chloe bent double, clutching her stomach with both hands. Her face twisted in agony, and a low, guttural cry escaped her lips. "Chloe." Julian dropped his cane, rushing to her side, catching her before she fell. "Chloe, what is it? Is it the baby? It hurts." Chloe gasped her breath, coming in short, panicked rasps. "Something's wrong. It's not just a contraction. It feels wrong. There's too much pressure." She looked down. A steady trickle of fluid was running down her leg, but it wasn't clear. It was stained with blood. "She's hemorrhaging." Jessica said, her voice turning urgent and professional. "We need an ambulance now." "No time for an ambulance," Julian barked, lifting Chloe into his arms with a strength that defied his age. "My helicopter is on the pad at the bottom of the estate. We're going to St. Jude's. I have a trauma team on standby." He turned to his security guards. "Don't let these two leave," he pointed at Marcus and Beatrice. "Call the police. Give them the evidence of the embezzlement. Hold them here until the authorities arrive." "Wait," Marcus shouted, seeing his wife and his leverage being carried away. "That's my child. You can't take her, I have rights." Julian paused at the door, holding his daughter close. He turned one last time, his eyes burning with a cold blue fire. "You gave up your rights when you threw her out in the rain," Julian said. "If anything happens to my daughter or my grandson tonight, Marcus, prison will be the safest place for you. Because if you're on the street, I will hunt you down." With that, Julian carried Chloe out into the storm, leaving Marcus and Beatrice alone in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by silent judging guests and 4 armed guards blocking the exits. The party was over. The nightmare was just beginning. The blades of the Sikorsky helicopter sliced through the storm clouds, a rhythmic thumping that matched the frantic beating of Julian Thorne's heart. Inside the cabin, the noise was deafening. But Julian only heard one thing: Chloe's shallow, ragged breathing. She was strapped to a stretcher, an oxygen mask covering her pale face. A flight paramedic was working furiously, checking monitors that were flashing angry red warnings. "BP is dropping 80/50, the paramedic shouted into his headset. "She's losing too much blood. The placenta has detached from the uterine wall. We need to get her to the OR immediately, or we lose both of them." Julian held Chloe's cold hand, his knuckles white. "Stay with me, Chloe," he begged, his voice breaking. "I just found you. You cannot leave me. Not now." Chloe's eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. She gripped Julian's hand with surprising strength. "The baby," she whispered behind the mask. "Save the baby. Please. If you have to choose, choose him." "I am saving both of you," Julian commanded, tears streaming down his face. "Do you hear me? Both of you." Below them, the city lights of Seattle blurred into streaks of rain-slicked neon. Julian felt a profound sense of helplessness. He could buy companies, topple governments, and ruin men like Marcus with a signature, but he couldn't bribe death. He was at the mercy of fate, and it terrified him. Meanwhile, back at the Sterling estate, the scene was chaotic, but in a very different way. The elegant string quartet had been replaced by the squawk of police radios and the flashing red and blue lights of 6 squad cars parked on the lawn. Marcus was being shoved toward a patrol car, his hands cuffed tightly behind his back. The rain plastered his expensive silk shirt to his skin, ruining the outfit he had spent 2 hours selecting. "This is a mistake," Marcus screamed, struggling against the grip of a burly officer. "Do you know who I am? I am the vice president of Vanguard Holdings. You can't arrest me on the word of some senile old man. You're under arrest for corporate embezzlement fraud and securities violations," the officer recited, unimpressed. "And we have a warrant to search the premises for evidence of money laundering." Behind him, Beatrice was being escorted by 2 female officers. She wasn't screaming. She was hyperventilating. Her makeup was running in black streaks down her face, making her look like a melted wax figure. "Marcus," she wailed. "You said you had it under control. You said the accounts were hidden. How could you be so stupid?" Marcus spun around, his face twisted in a snarl. "Me? You're the one who told me we needed to renovate the East Wing. You're the one who ordered the $50,000 catering for tonight. I stole that money for you, Mother." "Don't you dare blame me," Beatrice shrieked, struggling as the officers pushed her head down to get her into the back of a separate cruiser. "I told you to marry Jessica Thorne. If you had just charmed her instead of that pregnant cow, we would be fine." The guests huddled under the portico to stay dry watched the spectacle with morbid fascination. iPhones were raised, recording every second. By morning, the video of the sterling downfall would have millions of views. The social exile was instant and total. At St. Jude's Hospital, the helicopter touched down on the roof. A team of doctors and nurses in blue scrubs was already waiting the wheels of the gurney, screeching as they sprinted toward the aircraft. "Male 34 weeks, gestation, maternal hemorrhage, placental abruption," the lead doctor shouted as they transferred Chloe. "Go, go, go, or one is prepped." Julian tried to follow them into the operating room, but a nurse held him back at the swinging doors. "Sir, you can't go in there. It's a sterile field. We need room to work." "That is my daughter," Julian roared, panic seizing him. "And we are trying to save her life," the nurse said firmly but kindly. "Please, let us do our jobs. Wait here." The doors swung shut, cutting off the view of Chloe being swarmed by the surgical team. Julian was left standing in the sterile white hallway, the smell of antiseptic filling his nose. He collapsed onto a plastic chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time in 30 years, the Iron Wolf of Wall Street began to prey. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched into hours. Every time the doors opened, Julian's head snapped up, hoping for news, dreading the worst. He thought about the file Jessica had given him. He thought about Marcus. A dark, cold rage began to settle in his chest, replacing the panic. If Chloe died, there wouldn't be a lawsuit. There wouldn't be a prison sentence. There would simply be a disappearance. Marcus would vanish, and no one would ever find him. Finally, after 3 agonizing hours, the doors opened. Dr. Evans, the lead surgeon, walked out. He looked exhausted. His scrub cap was in his hand, and there were sweat stains on his shirt. Julian stood up, his legs shaking. He couldn't speak. He just looked at the doctor, his eyes begging for mercy. Dr. Evans let out a long breath and smiled. "She made it," Dr. Evans said. "It was touch and go. She lost a lot of blood, and we had to perform an emergency hysterectomy to stop the bleeding. She won't be able to have more children. But she is stable. She's in the ICU." Julian let out a sob of relief, his knees buckling. "And the baby?" "He's a fighter," Dr. Evans said. "He's whole 4 pounds 6 ounces. His lungs are a bit undeveloped, so he's in the NICU on a ventilator. But his vitals are strong. He's going to be fine." Julian closed his eyes, tears leaking out. "Thank you. Thank you." "You can see her in a little while," the doctor said. "She's waking up from the anesthesia." Julian nodded, wiping his face with a silk handkerchief. He wasn't just a father anymore. He was a grandfather, and he had a lot of work to do to make sure the world his grandson grew up in was safe. 3 days later. The persistent beep of the heart monitor was the first thing Chloe heard. It was a rhythmic, annoying sound that pulled her out of the darkness. She blinked her eyelids, feeling like lead weights. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of medical equipment. She tried to move, but a sharp pain in her lower abdomen made her gasp. "Easy, easy," a deep, soothing voice said. A warm hand covered hers. Chloe turned her head to see Julian sitting in a chair next to the bed. He looked different. The fierce, intimidating billionaire looked tired. He was wearing a cardigan instead of a suit jacket, and he was reading a book called What to Expect the First Year. "Dad," she rasped, her throat dry as sandpaper. Julian smiled, his eyes crinkling. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. The baby." Chloe panicked, trying to sit up. "Where is he? Is he?" "He is perfect," Julian assured her, gently pressing her back against the pillows. "He's just down the hall in the nursery. He's breathing on his own now. They took the tube out an hour ago. He has your nose." Chloe slumped back, tears of relief flooding her eyes. "He's okay. He's okay." "He's strong," Julian said, "like his mother." He poured a cup of water and held the straw to her lips. She drank greedily. "Marcus?" she asked after a moment, the memory of the party crashing back into her mind. Did he come?" Julian's face hardened, though his voice remained soft. "Marcus is currently enjoying the hospitality of the King County Jail. He has been denied bail due to being a flight risk. It turns out he had a fake passport and a ticket to Brazil booked for next week. He was planning to leave you, Chloe, even before the party." Chloe closed her eyes, a single tear tracking down her temple. "I knew he didn't love me anymore. But Brazil. He's being charged with 12 counts of felony embezzlement," Julian continued. "But that's the least of his problems." Julian reached into his bag and pulled out a tablet. He hesitated. "I didn't want to show you this yet. But you need to know who you are living with. You need to know that you are never, ever going back to him." He tapped the screen and held it up. It was a document, a life insurance policy. "He took this out 3 months ago," Julian said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "A $5 million policy on your life. Double indemnity for accidental death." Chloe squinted at the legal jargon. I don't understand." "Chloe," Julian said gravely. "He didn't just want to leave you. The night of the party, he was escalating the stress intentionally. He knew you had high blood pressure. He was trying to induce a medical crisis. He didn't want a divorce. He wanted a widower's payout." The room went silent. Chloe felt cold, a deep, bone-chilling cold that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. The cruel words, the public humiliation, the way he ignored her pain. It wasn't just cruelty. It was a calculated attempt to kill her. He wanted me to die," she whispered. "He wanted the money," Julian said. "He owed a lot of money to some very bad people. Loan sharks. He gambled away the company funds and they were coming for his knees. You were his exit strategy." Chloe looked at the ceiling, feeling the last remnants of love she held for her husband turn into ash. She didn't feel sad anymore. She felt angry. "I want to see him," Chloe said suddenly. "Chloe, no." Julian shook his head. "You need to rest. You don't need that stress." "I want to see him," she repeated, her voice gaining strength. "I need him to see me. I need him to see that I'm alive. And I need to tell him that he will never see his son." 2 days later, Chloe was wheeled into the visitation room of the county jail. She was still weak, seated in a wheelchair, but she had insisted on wearing a sharp, tailored white dress that Julian had bought for her. She had her hair done. She looked like a sterling. No, she looked like a thorn. Julian stood behind her wheelchair, a silent sentinel. On the other side of the plexiglass, Marcus was brought in. He looked terrible. His hair was greasy. He had a bruise on his cheek, courtesy of a cellmate who didn't like his attitude, and he was wearing an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit. When he saw Chloe, his eyes lit up, not with love, but with desperation. He grabbed the phone receiver. "Chloe, baby," Marcus cried into the phone. "Thank God you're okay. I've been so worried. You have to get me out of here. These people, they're animals. You have to tell them it was all a misunderstanding." Chloe slowly picked up the receiver. She didn't smile. She just stared at him with cold, dead eyes. "Hello, Marcus," she said. "Chloe, listen to me," Marcus pleaded, his eyes darting around. "I know I was stressed at the party. I said some things I didn't mean. But I love you. And we have a baby now. A son. I have a right to see my son." "You have no rights," Chloe said calmly. "We found the insurance policy, Marcus." Marcus froze. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The color drained from his face. I can explain that," he stammered. "It was financial planning. For our future." "There is no future," Chloe cut him off. "I spoke to the district attorney this morning. I'm cooperating fully. I'm testifying about the abuse, the stress, the threats. And since my father's lawyers found the loan sharks you owe money to, we handed them over to the FBI. They're testifying against you too in exchange for leniency." Marcus slammed his fist against the glass. "You can't do this to me. I made you. You were nothing before me." "I was happy before you," Chloe corrected him, "and I will be happy after you. But you're going to be very lonely." She signaled to Julian. Julian leaned into the microphone, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "I bought your debt, Marcus," Julian said. "The loan sharks sold it to me before the FBI picked them up. So even if you somehow get out of prison in 20 years, you owe me $4 million. You will work for the rest of your life, and every penny you earn will belong to me." Marcus looked at Julian with pure hatred. "You ruined my life." "No," Chloe said, hanging up the phone. "You did that yourself." She turned her wheelchair away from the glass. "Chloe! Chloe, come back!" Marcus screamed, pounding on the glass as the guards moved in to drag him away. "You can't leave me here. I'm the father. I'm the father." His screams faded as the heavy steel door slammed shut behind him. Chloe didn't look back. She rolled out of the jail and into the sunshine. For the first time in months, the air tasted sweet. "Ready to go home?" Julian asked, opening the door to the limousine. "Not yet," Chloe said, looking at the city skyline. "I have one more stop to make. I need to visit Beatrice." Julian raised an eyebrow. "Is that wise?" "Beatrice cares about one thing only," Chloe said, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Her reputation. I want to be the one to tell her that the Sterling estate is being renamed." "Renamed to what?" Julian asked. Chloe smiled. "The Leo Thorne Shelter for Women." The iron gates of the Sterling estate stood open, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Gone were the luxury cars and the pretentious security guards. In their place were moving trucks, not high-end movers, but foreclosure clean-out crews hauling boxes of seized assets out the front door. The rain had stopped, leaving the grounds smelling of wet earth and pine. Chloe sat in the back of the limousine as it rolled up the driveway, her father's hand resting reassuringly on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this," Julian reminded her softly. "I can have my lawyers handle her." "No," Chloe said, smoothing the fabric of her white dress. "She spent 2 years making me feel small. I need to stand tall in front of her. Just once." They found Beatrice in the grand foyer. She was arguing with a man in a jumpsuit who was holding a large Ming vase. "Put that down," Beatrice shrieked, her voice raspy from days of crying. "That has been in my family for generations. You can't take that." "It's listed on the asset forfeiture sheet, lady," the mover said, bored. "Bank owns it now." "Beatrice." Chloe's voice rang out clear and calm. Beatrice spun around. She looked like a ghost of her former self. Her hair was unkempt, her makeup was non-existent, and she was wearing a tracksuit. Something she had once told Chloe was, "Clothing for people who have given up on life." When she saw Chloe, a flicker of her old venom returned. She straightened her back, trying to summon dignity she no longer possessed. "You," Beatrice hissed. "You did this. Are you happy you destroyed my family?" "You destroyed it yourself," Chloe replied, wheeling herself forward slightly. "You pushed Marcus to be greedy. You taught him that status was more important than loyalty, and you treated me like dirt because I didn't come with a trust fund." Beatrice laughed bitterly. "And now you do. So you're here to gloat, to kick me while I'm down. How very nouveau riche of you." "I'm here to give you a choice," Chloe said. Beatrice narrowed her eyes. "What kind of choice?" Chloe motioned to Julian. He stepped forward and handed Beatrice a single envelope. "Inside that envelope is a key," Chloe explained. "It's for a small 2-bedroom apartment in Tacoma. The rent is paid for 6 months. There is also a prepaid debit card with enough for groceries and utilities." Beatrice looked at the envelope as if it were a bomb. "Tacoma? You expect me to live in Tacoma? It's near where I used to live," Chloe said. "It's a humble neighborhood. Real people live there. It might be good for you." "And if I refuse?" Beatrice sneered, tossing the envelope onto a stack of boxes. "I have friends, you know. I don't need your charity." "Your friends stopped returning your calls 3 days ago, when the news broke," Julian interjected coldly. "We checked. You have nowhere to go, Beatrice." Chloe continued. "The choice is simple. Take the apartment and try to start over, or stay here and get escorted off the property by the sheriff's department in exactly 1 hour for trespassing. Because as of noon today, this house belongs to the Thorn Foundation." Beatrice looked around the empty foyer, the grand staircase she had descended like a queen only days ago. The silence was deafening. The realization hit her. She was truly alone. Slowly, with trembling hands, Beatrice reached out and picked up the envelope. She didn't say thank you. She couldn't. She just clutched it to her chest. Her eyes filled with tears of humiliation. "What will happen to the house?" Beatrice whispered. "It's going to be a shelter," Chloe said, a genuine smile touching her lips. "For women and children escaping domestic abuse. Women who need a safe place to hide from men like Marcus. It's going to be filled with laughter and healing instead of judgment and coldness." Beatrice looked at Chloe, really looked at her for the first time. She didn't see the fat, lazy girl she had mocked. She saw a woman of immense power and grace. "Goodbye, Beatrice," Chloe said. She signaled to Julian, and they turned to leave. They didn't watch Beatrice walk out the door. They didn't need to. 6 months later, the sun was shining brightly over the newly christened Leo Thorne Center for Women. The grand ballroom, once the site of Chloe's greatest humiliation, was now filled with round tables, colorful balloons, and children running around playing tag. Chloe stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. She wasn't wearing a designer gown to impress anyone. She was wearing jeans and a blouse, holding a chubby, laughing baby Leo on her hip. "Thank you all for coming," Chloe said into the microphone. 6 months ago, I stood in this room and felt like my life was over. I felt worthless. But I learned that worth isn't determined by your bank account, your dress size, or your husband's approval. It comes from within." The crowd cheered. In the front row, Julian wiped a tear from his eye. Next to him sat Jessica Thorne, who was now the head of legal counsel for the foundation. Chloe looked down at Leo. He had her eyes and his grandfather's stubborn chin. He gurgled and reached for the microphone, making the audience laugh. Marcus was currently serving the first year of a 15-year sentence. Beatrice was working as a receptionist at a dental clinic, learning for the first time what it meant to earn a paycheck. But Chloe didn't think about them anymore. She looked at her father, her son, and the dozens of women in the room who were finally safe. She raised her glass, not of champagne, but of sparkling apple cider. "To new beginnings," she said. "To new beginnings," the room echoed back. The karma had been hard, swift, and just. But the best revenge wasn't seeing Marcus in a cell or Beatrice in a small apartment. The best revenge was simply being happy. And that is the incredible story of Chloe Marcus and the karma that hit harder than a freight train. It just goes to show that no matter how powerful someone thinks they are, treating people with kindness will always be the true measure of success. Marcus and Beatrice thought they could crush Chloe, but they only succeeded in revealing her true strength and the power of a father's love. What did you think of Julian's revenge? Do you think he was too harsh on Marcus, or did he get exactly what he deserved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Especially about Beatrice. Should Chloe have helped her at the end? If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We have plenty more drama twists and real-life karma coming your way. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.